Chapter 7. The Tickle of a Ripple from the Blasted Past. The sound was less a cacophony and more like chaos itself. The overlapping voices of so many individuals who were implicitly defining their identities with every word and action would be maddening if one was subject to it continually. But those students participating in it could withstand it based largely on their ability to shut out the mess of the entirety and focus solely on what concerned them. The large room of the cafeteria, where the middle school students congregated before the bell that signified the start of the day would ring, was bursting with the vibrations of voices colliding with each other, creating an insurmountable noise that represented the very tumultuous and turbulent reality each and every young adolescent in the room was experiencing in one form or others. And Dr. Cook wouldn't have it any other way. This is representative of why she chose to teach on this grade level rather than continue to teach and supervise on the university level. The clear, undefined mess of socialization inherent in large groups of individuals, each having not yet fully composed their own identity and testing out various forms of self for values of comfort, functionality, and efficacy in the myriad of interactions with peers. She knew that the sciences of the Western world tended to thrive on the think tanks that developed, and this scene was the most organically occurring think tank that there ever was. Something about this age group thrown together to freely socialize generated the source of inspirations, the kind of which would be, in the best of circumstances, revisited at later points in their lives, but would concern shared ideas rather than harnessing the energy of social reality to forge identities in the fires of interaction. She was there to make certain no student got burned. It was a constantly changing amorphous comfort of human minds becoming, and this little enclave of it in a larger world of strife and chaos was the place she enjoyed. This grouping of students in the cafeteria, laughing and shouting, talking and playing with the anticipatory energy while they waited for the first bell of the day. This provided her with a clear view of what could easily be the most comfortable stupidity the world had to offer. With her arms folded at her chest, her right hand holding the walkie-talkie, she turned on her heels and walked so the students wouldn't see her crack a smile over her thought. To regain her composure, rather than allow the eruption of laughter, she followed along with her thought. Stupidity is a naturally occurring state, one that all humans hold from the onset of cognizance. We do not know the world and are stupid to the reality through which we move. But the comfortable stupidity is one that is innocuous, one that will be resolved in a given time frame if education takes hold properly. Her smile, now faded, gave way to a slight frown with the next realization. The dangerous stupidity is when stupidities are functional within a small sector of the world, a sphere of functionality that convinces the human practicing it that it is not stupidity as it functions to benefit them. With the state of the world as it is today, what with the threat of terrorists, the looming fears regarding the large market economy, the rampant discriminations and short-sighted unkindness toward others, it seems the stupidities have taken a greater hold on the collective human mind than they will ever relinquish. She looked out to the students and tried to imagine their lives beyond their adolescence. Their activity dispelled her cynicism for a moment. She thought of how vibrant and caring these young individuals were at this moment and could not imagine time offering any changes that could erode such beauty. There, in the midst of the early teens before her, privilege and cloistered kindness met to fashion a sense of hope that the world might teeter onward well when the time comes for them to take the helm. The glass doors behind her opened and she glanced quickly, noting how her attention had been distracted by her thinking and how she should not allow that to happen. The moment of hope was overshadowed by the knowledge of the protocols she and the rest of the administration had practiced regarding lockdown drills. That there was good cause to be prepared on a moment's notice to protect the students from an invading force seeking to cause death. That numerous school shootings had occurred in previous years throughout the nation and prompted a state of readiness in all schools reminded her that she should not indulge in her ponderings and thoughts while she was charged with watching out for the well-being of the students. Relieved to see a familiar face, she struggled to put a name to the parent walking in. Visitors and substitutes were issued name tags, and she wished that parents were required to wear them as well, just to help her and the other faculty bypass the awkward conversational component of attempting to recollect the parent's name. Luckily, this one struck first. "Dr. Cook." The inflection was more of a statement than a question. "Oh, great. Now I need to remember her name. Which student is her kid? Did I see him or her today?" "I'm Meridia, parent of one of the fourth graders," she said while extending a hand. Problem solved. "Ah, yes, Meridia. What can I do for you?" she asked, casting her eyes out over the students to show that her attention would be there, while she seamlessly switched the hand the walkie-talkie rested in. "Well, I'm not here to hound you about anything too important," she started looking through her purse. "It's not like I'm going to ask to move Minerva up a grade to your class." The comment from Meridia brought Dr. Cook's gaze, yet the former was looking through her purse as though she was aware that in mentioning her child's name there was a form of verbal verification that this conversation was not already more awkward than it seemed to be. Dr. Cook immediately placed this parent, as the name of her child was considerably unique as the child's talents for mathematical thinking. "If you feel her ready to, we could include her in a few classes to see how she does." Dr. Cook offered the same opportunity that was offered when they had a meeting some weeks back about that very topic. "Thank you, but I want to wait a bit longer. The social aspect is the most important part of her schooling." Meridia cut herself off and looked suddenly at Dr. Cook. "No offense. I mean, the education is important, but as an only child and after the divorce, it's okay. No offense taken. I just want to make sure she has no disruption from the social time she has with the kids in her grade. After taking her out of math, if she was to join the grade above her, it could do more harm than damage this year." "Is there a difference between harm and damage?" Dr. Cook asked. Meridia let out a sigh of self-awareness over her own flustered stupidity. "More harm than good." She touched Dr. Cook's arm. "I get a little scattered sometimes." "It happens to the best of us," Dr. Cook reassured her while glancing away to watch her charges. "Do you think I'm making the right choice?" Meridia asked so earnestly and suddenly that Katerina turned her head toward her. "What I think is secondary, at best, to what you think," Dr. Cook said, and her eyes looked across the cafeteria as the volume of the crowd was reaching levels she would seek to regulate soon. As her eyes returned to Meridia, Katerina said, "I trust you to have the best of Minerva's interest in mind and heart." "Here's to hoping my heart thinks clearer than my mind does at times," Meridia said, recommencing her dig through her purse. "Oh, you're all right," Dr. Cook said. "My own stupidity never ceases to amaze me." "And you're the good doctor." Katerina did not know how to react to that good-natured barb, and jiggled her shoulders with a giggle until the pause was over. "Anyway," Meridia said, "I've been doing my artist thing to blow off steam, and I've started practicing by using old photos I have. Oh, please, don't let her show me her work. I don't know why she would consider me to be an appropriate judge of her talent. I am not an art critic. Why would she even bother?" And long story short, Meridia looked up from her purse. "Have you ever been to Mozart's?" Katerina's brow furrowed by the seemingly disconnected question, and her train of thought, thoroughly derailed, was well portrayed by the parallel lines between her eyebrows underneath the ledges formed on her forehead. She formulated that this parent was asking about a cafe that sat alongside the Colorado River, just north of Redbud Isle, a fairly popular location that she had only been to once. She wondered why Meridia would mention it. Yes, I think once. Looking with mounting irritation at her own disorganized purse, Meridia was not looking at Katerina. Well, it would be very odd if I had a photograph of that time. Dr. Cook noticed that Meridia seemed unconcerned that the photograph might be of another woman with dark-toned skin, and wondered if this white lady would feel stricken with embarrassment once she realized her social blunder. "Oh, here it is," she said, "right behind my phone," and she extracted both while recalling that her phone had chimed a notification before. She handed the photograph to Dr. Cook while looking at the screen of her phone. A collision of emotions occurred as Katerina saw her face from nearly a decade earlier in the background of the photograph handed to her. Her assumption regarding race was quashed, and the genuine human emotion that accompanies recollection of a specific time, once blocked from memory, rushed upon her. She did not notice that an emotion of similar potency and power was worn by Meridia. Nor did Meridia see it upon the being of Dr. Cook. Each was well ensnared by the simple reality of their lives, which rendered each their own scope of awareness to their own selves. Meridia was taken aback by the message on her screen. Nothing that another would see as being cause to shock, but something that gave her an uneasy feeling, given what she knew of the salutation. The notification on her phone was for an email, and before unlocking her phone, the notification sat on the screen with the name of the sender and the first line of the message in view. It was from her ex-husband, and the only line she could see was, "Hey, Mary, I just want..." And that was enough to bother her. Since the divorce, he had not used the familiar Mary as her nickname. He had only started messages with hey or hi, and did not even use her name when they spoke. And now he had used the name that denoted a specific degree of intimacy between them. The name he had used on countless little notes to her during their marriage, anniversary cards and gifts, and even the name he had mused poetically over during their courtship. She was not exhilarated as she once was, but suspicious and nervous about why he would address her in that manner now. It was off-putting, to say the least, and quite a good reflection of the strange tumult of emotion Katerina was experiencing right next to her. Katerina tried to forget that one day in the picture, and had done quite well at it. She had, at the time the photograph was taken, ventured out to the cafe to meet someone dear to her, someone she thought was dear to her. Nearing the end of her undergraduate studies, she had pondered foregoing the venture into graduate school in order to spend time with that person. She had sat in the cafe on the clear day, sipping a chai latte, watching the ducks and turtles mull about the water. She looked out to the green hills rolling upward across the still liquid, and the scaffold-like communications tower rising above the land. She remembers seeing couples with toddlers attempt to enjoy a coffee and brownie while nervously following after their young, as though the months of seclusion during the early years of raising the children would not wear out their marriage if they could only get out into the larger world for some sparse moments. The pristine sense of living she had felt at that moment was a hopeful tranquility that she had not known since that moment. But she had come to believe that such a feeling was delusional, as the man she waited for never showed up. He never contacted her again, simply stood her up after a passionate and short courtship that culminated in carnal bliss. She could see the clear semblance of her happiness in that moment. She had lived through nearly a decade of pains, and the truth is, she believed what she saw was delusional, because that was the only solace she could find.